So, what did we discuss in the previous class? Where is Dam?
He is old.
ओल्ड हो गया क्या ओल्ड हो गया
Old and
Prabhu, your Ragatmika Bhakti is giving headache to everyone. Not easy. Not easy.
So what did we discuss in the previous class? Nobody is answering that question.
2 types of Ragatmika Bhakti.
Before five, okay. What is Ragatmika Bhakti?
State of consciousness. Perfectional state of consciousness.
Okay, raise your hands if you want to answer. Nobody wants to answer.
perfection of spontaneous devotional service.
Okay. So it is the perfection of spontaneous devotional service. Is it the start of spontaneous devotional service? Is it the practice of spontaneous devotional service? No. It is the perfection of spontaneous devotional service. That practice of spontaneous devotional service, which will eventually lead to the perfection of spontaneous devotional service, is called as Raga Anuga Bhakti. Okay, so that is at the outset, that is the difference. So in that sense, Ragatmika Bhakti is the goal and Raganuga Bhakti is the process which, if followed, will lead to that goal. So Ragatmika Bhakti is also known as, therefore, it is the sadhya. It is the sadhya. Sadhya means goal, and Raganuga Bhakti is the sadhana or the process. So this has to be very clear. Okay? Sometimes many people are confused about the difference between both. So in this class there should be no confusion on this. One is the goal, one is the process, very clear. One is the perfection of spontaneous devotional service, another is the process of spontaneous devotional service. We understood the difference between Ragatmika and Raga. What else did we discuss in the previous class?
2 types of Ragatmika. 2
Fear
types.
and the Dvesha, they don't get their almost impersonalist. Ragatmika Bhakti, they will actually achieve the impersonalism effulgence. So like, Kamsa and Shishupal with the Dvesha and the Kamsa with the fear. So even though it's spontaneous, they always thought about Krishna, but it's not actually favorable.
Very good. Okay. So what is the verse? Everyone remembers now? Gopyat Kamat Bhayat Kam. So don't look at the board. That way everyone can say. Gopyat Kamat Bhayat Kamso. Then Vesha Chaitya Adayo Nrupa. Then Sambandhan Krishnaya. Then Sneha Yuyam Vayam Vibho. Vibho means walking. So this is, so if now that you have understood the meaning, it should be easy to remember this verse. Okay. So this is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. So Rupa Goswami specifically chooses this particular verse for explaining what is Ragatmika Bhakti and what is not Ragatmika Bhakti. So Rupa Goswami specifically chooses this verse. So we also saw 2 categories of Ragatmika devotees. 2 categories in Ragatmika. So what are the 2 categories in Ragatmika? Kama Rupa and Sambandha Rupa. What is the meaning of Kama Rupa? That bhakti which is driven by spontaneous sensual attraction or conjugal love. That is called as Kama Rupa. Desire to worship the Lord in that way. The drive is coming like that. The other, where there is no, it may not be an official relationship also. It may not be a seminal relationship also. It is driven completely by sensual attraction. The other one is Sambandha Rupa, which is relationships. Other types of relationships with the Lord. Maybe in other rasas. Like that. So you had a question?
Have you come across your reading why the conjugal rasa is always separated as others as compared to other rasas? Why only that is given? You mentioned an example last week while all citizens came and the king also came, right? So king is also part of this kingdom, but still he is separate because he is special. Similarly, this.
Hang on. Let the parents realize that their children are making noise, and let the parents, after realizing, act on that. All right. Okay. So what was the point?
So why is only conjugal love given a special treatment or priority? Even in other rasas, I know it's at the top. It's not really, there is no gradation really, but still it is very special. And again here we see that it's separated from other sambandhas. It is specially separated out. Is there any reason why the relationship with Krishna in conjugal love is special as compared to other relationships? Have you come across any explanation for it?
I have not. There are many places where I can't quote anywhere that this section talks about that. But generally, I think all of us essentially know it. It's just a way of knowing that we know it. Conjugal love, why it is higher than any other rasa? That is because at the end of the day, the highest relationship with the Lord is one where there is least remembrance or consciousness, there is least consciousness of the Godhood of God. The highest devotion to Bhagavan, the highest relationship with Bhagavan is one where there is least consciousness of the Godhood of God. And that consciousness prevails maximum in conjugal. In Dasyaras, so it will be more like the devotee is like this. Adiyan Ramanujan is servant of the Lord. Or Tukaram also says that he is the servant of the Lord. There is awe and reverence in that relationship. Then it graduates to friendship. But a friend can also get only that close to the Lord. In friendship also you can only get that close to the Lord. Not beyond a point you can't. Then there is parental affection. In parental affection, there is forgetfulness of the Godhood of God in one sense. In which pastime it is known? Damodar Leela. Otherwise the Yashoda mother will not run behind Krishna with a stick if she knows that he is God. Bhagavan ko kaun marega? It's like that. Aparad ho jayega. It will be like that. Hitting the Lord. If we go inside and hit the deities, obviously that's an offense. It's a seva aparad. But that is Vaidhi Bhakti. Now we are talking Agatmika. So there is that spontaneity is there. So that forgetfulness is there. But again, it is still, it has a name. That relationship still has a name to it. As the mother and son. Whereas, when the gopis leave their husband and then go to hear flute of Krishna, then there is a stigma associated also with it, in one sense. If a mother hits a child, chastises a child, there is no stigma associated with that. There is no fear of a stigma. Whereas when a wife leaves the husband and runs with the paramour and the society comes to know about it, something like that, okay, then there is a stigma associated with that. And the gopis don't even care about that stigma, which is actually the highest that a woman takes care of. What is the highest care that a woman can take care of herself is her chastity. So, in one sense, that is also, they don't care, you know, whatever they are called, they run after Krishna. So, that is the highest. So, and also, if you see from the proximity to the Lord, that is the closest one can get to the Lord. The kind of pastime, the Ras Leela that Lord does with the gopis, even so no other form of, no other rasa has got that closeness to the Lord, which is there in the Rasa Leela.
Can I add something to it? What I heard, one of the Maharajas, I'm not able to exactly remember, but what I remember hearing is that in conjugal love, every other rasa is also there in it. So that's one more thing.
True. Okay. Anything else? Alright. So today we'll discuss a little bit more on that section. Gopyat Kamat Bhayat Gamso Dvesha Chaitya Adayo Nripa Sambandhat Vishnayat Nehat Yuyam Bhaktya Vayam Yugo. So we also discussed in the previous class, we touched upon this point, that let's take the Bhayat and the Dveshat. So what does Rupa Goswami say about Bhayat and Dveshat? What is the good part of Bhay and Dvesh, the way Kamsa and Shishupal practice? What is the good part of it and what is the bad part of it?
Always
Correct. The good part of that Bhay and that Dvesh is that they were always meditating on the Lord, out of fear and out of envy. That is the good part. Because at the end of the day, the highest message of Srila Rupa Goswami out of the 64 items of Bhakti is what? Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. And Kamsa followed that principle, and Shishupal also followed that principle of always remembering Krishna and never forgetting Krishna. So that was a good part of that Bhaya and Dvesh. The bad part of that Bhaya and Dvesh was that the devotion was unfavorable. It was not anukulyasya sankalpa. It was not anukulyasya sankalpa. It was not anukulyena Krishna anusilanam. It was not anukul bhakti. It was not favorable intentions. It was unfavorable intentions. So therefore, because the intentions are unfavorable, therefore Bhaya, Kamsa and Dvesha Chaitya Adaya cease to be components of Ragatmika Bhakti. That's why I put a cross against them. So they are not Ragatmika Bhakti. They are excluded from the domain of Ragatmika Bhakti. And therefore Ragana. Right? Does it make sense? So there is a good part and then there is a bad part. Otherwise, why Rupa Goswami will mention it and then remove it from there? Why will Narad Muni mention? Narad Muni mentioned it in a completely different context. We discussed that in the previous class. Narad Muni's main point is there has to be constant remembrance of the Lord. He is emphasizing on the point. Rupa Goswami, as if to give us a caveat or a warning, tells us that that's fine, but please understand Narad Muni has a context in which he is saying that. Let us not try and therefore emulate the mood of or imitate the mood of Kamsa and Shishupal. Correct? Because if you see, Prabhupada has written in many of his books repeatedly, why did we fall down into the material world? Because of envy towards the Lord. So envy is the cause of fall down. And that envy leads to forgetfulness for conditioned souls. But that envy led to remembrance for Shishupal. Okay? Right? But still it is not part of Ragatmika. Because for Ragatmika it has to be favorable intention. Why? Because Rupa Goswami, that is why Rupa Goswami at the outset in Nectar of Devotion, the first point that he laid down was the principles of Uttama Bhakti, which is Anyapalesha Shunyam Jnana Karmadi Anartham Anukulyena Krishna Anusilana. Anukul. So that Anukul is very important. So the attraction of Kamsa to Krishna in fear and the attraction of Shishupal in envy are not accepted as devotional service because their attitudes are not favorable. So this is a very important point to remember. Now let's come to Bhaktya Vayam. So Narad Muni's attachment to Krishna is called as Bhaktya. Vayam means me. Bhaktya Vayam. So Jiva Goswami explains that Narad Muni's devotional service arises out of a sense of duty, which is also called as Kartavya Buddhi. Out of a sense of duty. Duty coming from devotion. Narada Muni.
Devotional service, out of duty.
There is a sense of awe and reverence that Lord is the Supreme, He is the maintainer of all living entities, He is the Parabrahman, He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are all His servants. It is a duty of every constitutional, every living entity to serve the Lord unconditionally. Right?
That fall under Sambandha. Why is it? Because it's relationship based. Duty is based on a relationship that he's superior to me, he's the provider or he's everything. How does it?
Okay. In relationship also there is a service. But service in a relationship has got a different flavor than service done out of duty. Right? Does it make sense? We discussed that last time. So it is not that the servant can simply say that it is my duty to, my master's children are there, it is my duty to just give them whatever they want because at the end of the day my master is paying me for that. I don't have to tell them what is right and wrong. So you can always operate out of duty. But again, please do not connect one-on-one to Narada Muni. I am giving a very mundane example. Okay, it's got nothing to do with, we are talking about something very high. Narada Muni's bhakti is at a very high level. Please do not relate one-on-one. I am just saying for very, very example so that we can relate to a very simple example. Okay. So, Narada Muni's bhakti is not coming under Ragatmika primarily because of awe and reverence. Because there is heavy awe and reverence involved in that. With awe and reverence, you cannot forget the element of duty in service. When there is awe and reverence, how can you forget? Here is the Supreme Personality of Lordhead. It is my duty to serve Him. It's coming out of awe and reverence. For example, if the chairman is coming to the office, it is our duty. When he comes, if a chairman comes to your desk, chairman of the company, and says, "Hey, how's it going?" What will you immediately do? Spontaneously,
Stand up.
you stand up. Okay. Why? It's etiquette to stand up. Will you stand up out of love for this? CEO, tears in your eyes, or will you chastise the CEO? I don't want to see your face. I was missing you. You're coming after 1 year. Nobody misses the CEO. Go away from here, rascal. And then the CEO says, "Oh, sorry if I have hurt you." Will that happen? He'll say, "Yeah, definitely. I'll see that you are out of this place." So that is not there. That you can't have that bhava, that mood, that spontaneous mood with that person. Or you can't look at that person and say, "See, a nice T-shirt, man." You can't say like that. Unless you have a relationship with them. Some people may say it. But those who have a relationship.
The Dasyaras is also a component of Andhra, right?
Yes. There is Dasya even in, as someone mentioned, even in Madhurya there is an element of Dasya. Because who is the highest servant of Krishna at the end of the day? Radharani. Which rasa is she? Dasya rasa? No. It's Madhurya rasa. And the highest, Vipralamba. Vipralamba rasa. So Vipralamba rasa, that is the highest mood. But still there is an element of service is there because it is the nature of the jiva to serve the Lord. the Lord likes to be served in different ways. That is why he is called as Akhila Rasamru Samurti. He likes to be served in different mellows. Okay. So he accepts service from some people who stand like this in front of him. On one spectrum it is like that. No? Who don't even want to look at his, who just look at his feet, that's all. Lord, I have seen your feet, that's good enough. I don't even want to look at your face. No, that kind of service. There are some who don't even want to see the Lord's feet also. For them also Lord provides Brahman. Right? And then there is one at the highest end of the spectrum where the Lord is being chastised heavily. Heavy chastisement. We cannot even tolerate that kind of chastisement if someone chastises. And then the Lord is loving that. He is enjoying that chastisement. Give me more of that. No, it's like that. So he is Akhila. So therefore, but the Dasya principle is always there. Because that is the nature of the living entity. Generally we associate service with awe and reverence. That is why our mindset is, the moment we say service, it has to be in awe and reverence. That's our mindset. That's why we are Vaidhi Sadhana Bhaktas. That's why we are not in that level of spontaneity right now. Because our concept itself is that service means there has to be a God and then I am the servant. That's not required. Bhaya Bhakti. In Tamil also, in childhood also, we have been continuously told Bhaya Bhakti oda like that. So Bhaya or Bhakti dono hona chahiye. Or in Hindi it's a Bhagavan se dar. Like that. So we have been given this message all the time. Fear, fear, fear. So, because there is awe and reverence attached and there is a sense of duty, therefore that is also not counted amongst the genuine forms of Raganuga, Ragatmika. Therefore that line is also out, wrong. And then top we have crossed some more. Now we come to affection. Sambandha Krishnaya and Snehad Yuyam. So, Dhanuraj Swami mentions here that the Pandavas' affection for Krishna, is it Ragatmika or is it not Ragatmika? According to that, what does the board tell you? Depends. That's why the board right and wrong is there. So, in situations where there is awe and reverence dealing is going on, then it is not. And in cases where it is, where awe and reverence is there, it is not. Where awe and reverence is missing, it is. Right? Let's take Arjuna. Any situation where Arjuna forgot the godhood of God.
The God of yes,
Eating with him.
When he was eating with him. What's a classic example?
He was a charioteer.
Oh, when he was putting his
Putting his
Putting the legs.
That's the worst you can do, to God. You're kicking the Lord and giving him instructions. Drive the chariot this way and that way. Right? Kicking. Because the charioteer kicks the passenger, traveler, whatever. What to call it? Not passenger. Whatever. The person who is standing behind, who is a warrior, and he generally gives directions in that way. Right? So that is an example of awe and reverence aspect is not there. And then awe and reverence aspect is there when he says that now I accept you as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I have heard from so many sages like Asita, Narada, Devala, and now you have shown it to me yourself. So Arjuna is vacillating between both these moods. Sometimes awe and reverence, sometimes pure Sakhya. He is idhar bhi hai, udhar bhi hai. Like that. So therefore, the Pandavas' affection for Krishna may or may not be Ragatmika Bhakti, depending on whether or not it is mixed with awe and reverence. Generally, it is mixed with a mood of reverence which forces them to be restrained by formality and etiquette and hinders their Ragatmika Bhakti. Formality and etiquette come in the way of free flow of any relationship. Right? sometimes even in the congregation, when we have close friendship with devotee, we always talk anything. Kuch bhi baat karte hain. Anything we talk with such person, right? But when some senior devotee comes, then or someone even junior, if the relationship is not there, then we'll say, even in males we'll say, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Pamho AGTSP. It is excellent to see your enthusiasm and please accept. I hope that I get the same enthusiasm. You are useless servant. Now who will you write such a mail to? जिसके साथ थोड़ा या तो महाराज, somebody we will write like that, or with someone who we don't have a yarana. No, it's not there. But it's someone, for example, even if sometimes they will write Hare Krishna from OHSP, then you will write just one line. Okay, there is no servant, nothing over there. Correct? So that is the relationship that is coming spontaneously. Right? You don't have to tell. In fact, to my Vartama Pradakshika Guru, again I don't know I have told this before or not, he was my best friend. The person who introduced me was my best friend. Right? So after many years, then he went to Los Angeles, I went to Toronto, now I have come to Australia, and then I wrote one day, I wrote Hare Krishna Pamho AGTSP. Then he called me, "Kya ho gaya?" Actually, he's a second initiated devotee. He's a very senior devotee. He's a congregational leader in his place. But still, he says, "Nahi yaar, chhodna hai. Ye sab kyun kar raha hai?" You know that. Remember, acha theek hai, bola. And then we started talking normal. Are tera, something like that. Typical Bombay style, Then we started. And then we started joking something here and there. And then our friendship was there. Of course, because we both are devotees, it will not be like that other fellow. That is not there because obviously it's not devotee. But still, then there can be still a healthy informality between devotees. It doesn't need to be colored by that vituperative language. It doesn't have to be like that. Correct? So, thoda bahut daira hai, but again, you don't need to use foul language to show your closeness to someone. That we learn in. Here also we have a lot of bumchums in Krishna Consciousness. We still have close, but we don't need to use that. माँ बहन पे गाली देने का जरूरत नहीं to show your closeness to somebody, correct? And still it is close. And these relationships have a foundation that will last much longer than those relationships which we had. Those relationships still can go for a toss, but these relationships will because Krishna is in the center of these relationships. Okay? So therefore, generally. The Pandavas' mood is mixed with awe and reverence, which forces them to be restrained by formality and etiquette and hinders their ragatmika bhakti. However, when this reverence subsides, with ठंडा हो गया reverence, खुल के बात करेंगे, their affection can be ragatmika. Okay? Srila Prabhupada explains. Again, he analyzes the affection of the yadus. What is the yadus now? Sambandhat Vrishnaya. If it is on the platform of friendship, and Prabhupada uses the word if it is on the platform of friendship, then it is spontaneous love. But if it is on the platform of regulative principles, then it is not. Which means Vrishnaya also is mixed. Pandavas also mixed. Kabhi haan, kabhi na. Sometimes yes, it is ragatmika. Sometimes it is no, it is not ragatmika. So there is a tick and a cross. So if you can just remember that, then that's good. That picture, then everything you will recollect. So what is the conclusion of that section? So there are 6 types of attachments. 4 out of the 6 types of attachments are out of the domain of ragatmika. 4 out of the 6 are out. Where is Neerav? Mataji? So 4 of the 6 types of attachments are out. Which are those which are out? 1 minute, I'll come to your question. Fear is out. Envy is out. Respectful affection is out. Respectful affection is out. Out. And obedient devotion is also out of Ragatmika Bhakti. I know it sounds a bit hard. Obedient devotion. Obedient devotion is also out of Ragatmika. Respectful affection is out. Does it mean disrespectful affection?
That is not
Which
allowed.
means spontaneous affection. That's the word. The opposite of respectful is not disrespectful. Opposite of respectful is in this context is what? Spontaneous affection, which can externally seem as disrespectful. We will come to that also in a few minutes. Okay. So therefore, that leaves only two things in the realm of. That leaves only two things in the realm of Ragatmika. What are the two things? Lusty desire, which is Kamaru, and familial relationship, which is Sambandharu.
But that was correct.
That is why
That was correct. Earlier
Earlier
it was
it was
correct.
correct then.
what?
It was only tick earlier.
The tick is because Sambandharu is there. But when Sambandharu has got, as long as it has got a component of awe and reverence, right, or respect, then it is not Ragatmika. That's why there is a tick as well as a wrong. It depends. Yes or everyone clear so far?
Then it will be three,
So the example of
including
including
Sneha. Sneha will also.
What is that?
Then it will be three, no, including Sneha.
That's also we have put there. No? Sneha Divyam also we have put at least.
Sneha and Sambandha.
Purely Ragatmika is one. Pure.
So then we will be left out with only one, which is
Only when we are, which is purely Ragatmika.
No. That Sambandhas and Snehas can come out of relationship. Please understand that. That Sambandha comes out of familial relationship and the Sneha comes out of friendly relationship. So there is a relationship component there. And in Kama there is a lustful component, a sensual component. So that is why you filter out of the three, two go towards Sambandha Rupa, one goes towards Kama Rupa. Is it clear or no?
Yes.
Okay. Yes?
Yep.
Now, we already discussed this point, but just reiterating that Shishupal and Kamsa, how could the Lord award the same goal as that to his enemies? We already discussed. What did they attain? They attained the impersonal liberation, okay? Not the personal. So, a summary has been given to this section. There are 6 basic methods of focusing the mind on Krishna. So what are those 6 methods? There are 6 methods of focusing the mind on Krishna. What are the 6 methods of focusing the mind on Krishna? Okay, those are the 6 ways of focusing mind on Krishna. Although all of them are liberating. All of them are liberating. Right? Only Kamarup and Sambandharup are types of Ragatmika Bhakti, though all other types are also liberating in nature. Therefore, Ragatmika Bhakti is not the only way of attaining liberation if someone only wants liberation. Liberation वैसे भी मिल जाएगा. Even in Narad Muni's Bhakti, you will get liberation. Even in impersonal Bhakti, we will get liberation. Even in Kansa's mood and Shishupal's mood, one can get liberation. But it doesn't come under Ragatmika. But the common component to all of that is that all of them are methods of remembering Krishna, which is also what Nectar of Devotion addresses. So Nectar of Devotion is giving that all-encompassing view, and it is also differentiating the subtle aspects. Does it make sense? So now let's little bit more focus on Kamarup or sensual attraction. Now, it is mentioned here that there are 2 types of Kam. One is material and the other is spiritual. 2 types of Kam. Material Kam, what is the difference between both the material Kama, material lust and spiritual lust? What is the difference?
Material lust, we see our
Beautiful.
satisfaction. In spiritual lust, we see Krishna.
Correct. दोनों में both have sense satisfaction. But in one, the desire is to satisfy, the primary desire is to satisfy Krishna sense. Sir, I am using the word primary for some reason. I will come to it later. I did not say in one it is to satisfy Krishna senses. No. In one, the primary desire is to satisfy Krishna senses. And in the other one, in material calm, the primary desire is to, in fact, the only desire is to,
Only desire. That not be
the second one, the only desire is to,
Satisfy.
but that's not why I used the word primary before. There's still something else. So spiritual lust is, the primary desire is to satisfy Krishna's senses. Material lust, the only desire is to satisfy our material. So therefore, and the nature of spiritual calm, spiritual lust is that desire to satisfy Krishna's senses is very intense, not lukewarm desire. It is characterized with lot of intensity. Srila Prabhupada writes, this lust is the devotee's excessive desire to serve the Lord in a particular capacity. I'll repeat. Srila Prabhupada writes, this lust, which lust? Spiritual lust, is the devotee's excessive desire. Everywhere there are extremes used in this here. The devotee's excessive desire, Prabhupada writes, to serve the Lord in a particular capacity. In a particular capacity. So that is the difference. Obviously, Dhanudhar Maharaj is quick to put a para around the fact that it is difficult for us to understand this. But still we will not understand the difference between material lust and spiritual lust. However, a devotee with some genuine realization in bhakti sees the pastimes as they really are, which are pure exchanges of unalloyed love. For it we require some realization. That's what Dhanudhar Maharaj says here. He knows that the gopis' internal motivation is radically different from the motivation of mundane lovers. Even though their external activities may appear similar. External activities may be similar, but the motivation is different. This is a little bit difficult for us to understand, even after all this explanation. So that is one. So there is a difficulty for us to understand this. The second aspect is apparent selfishness. Apparent selfishness, which means what? Sometimes it seems that the residents of Vrindavan act for their own happiness. Do the residents of Vrindavan act for their own happiness? No. Sometimes it seems that they act for their own happiness, but factually they are only for the Lord's pleasure. Factually they are only for the Lord's pleasure, though it may seem to us. They know that Krishna takes pleasure when his devotee is pleased. They know that Krishna takes pleasure when his devotee is pleased. That is why that element of pleasure for self is also because Krishna knows Krishna is pleased when the devotee is pleased. Like that. They know that Krishna takes pleasure when his devotee is pleased, and that is the only reason they sometimes seem to endeavor for their own happiness.
Can you give an example for this?
I'll give an example. Everyone has heard this very clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes it seems that the residents of Vrindavan act for their own happiness. It seems like that sometimes, but factually they act only for the Lord's pleasure. So there is a perception and then there is a fact. There is a perception that the gopis may act in their own for their own pleasure, but the fact is that they never act for their own pleasure. And even though it may seem that they are acting for their own pleasure, the only reason they may have that iota of desire to act for their own pleasure is because they know that if I am not happy, Krishna will not be happy. Therefore, I have to be happy. Therefore, they act for their own pleasure only to that extent, again because Krishna should be happy. It's like that. That is what he is bringing this point. Is it clear? Example are many. Okay, for example, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Jagadananda Pandit. Who is Jagadananda Pandit? Who is Jagadananda Pandit? Yeah, in Krishna Leela he is Satyabhama. People from Krishna Leela, so many devotees came in Chaitanya Leela. Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari in Krishna Leela. But in Chaitanya Leela, in Gaur Leela he is Rupa Goswami. Like that. So all these Rasika devotees of the Lord in Vrindavan, they participated in Gaur Leela also. So Satyabhama came as Jagadananda Pandit. Now what is Satyabhama's relationship with Krishna? What is that? Kop Bhavan. There is a room called as Kop Bhavan. We cannot afford nowadays. Because 2-bedroom itself is, 2-bedroom apartment itself is, पूरा जिंदगी जाता है mortgage भरने. Kop Bhavan के लिए room कहाँ से निकालें? Kop Bhavan is a room where the ladies used to go when they don't want to talk to the husband. नाराज होगा. Then the husband will go, अरे यार, Kop Bhavan में मत जाना. Here whatever fight happens will be within the 1-bedroom kitchen. Correct? So there is no Kop Bhavan. When fight happens, the Kop Bhavan is a street, I think. The husband has to go out.
The whole house is a Kop Bhavan.
Exactly. Okay. So this is Satyabhama's mood. So she gets upset with the Lord, and then the Lord has to go like a hen-pecked husband, and then unko mana ke leke aata hai. This is Satyabhama's mood towards Krishna. That Satyabhama came as Jagadananda Pandit in Gaur Leela. Now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas. Jagannath Puri, he was living a very austere life. So Jagadananda Pandit could never tolerate that till the last. That Mahaprabhu is living a very simple life. He is not eating properly. Kya bartan mein khate hain? Sometimes he is drinking. He is eating. He is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is come as sannyasi and he is so hard on himself, doing so much of austerity. Jagadananda Pandit cannot tolerate. So he will deliberately, bring some very elaborate paraphernalia. He will make nice bed for the Lord and all that. And then the Lord will say, no, I cannot accept all these things. So Jagadananda Pandit will say, to hell with you. And then he will start breaking all that pots, tearing everything up. Now is this devotional service? Yes. Yes. So externally it may act. It may seem that it is not, but actually that is the mood, and Krishna is relishing that mood of Satyabhama's anger. Like that. Because he is Akhila Rasamrita Murti. We cannot relish that mood even for 2 minutes. That is a different issue. And that mood is also not transcendental. Transcendental mood nahi hai. Neither the wife's mood is transcendental nor the husband is, Teji himself. They'll realize. Therefore there is Vanda in the house. Okay. So, but this is different. So this is an example of that. And Jagadananda Pandit is also acting like that. Okay, and he is also internally, it is to give pleasure to the Lord. Like that. And sometimes the devotee may also accept certain things just to make the Lord happy. So that's about apparent selfishness. Now the word lust is concluded here in this section. When Srila Rupa Goswami says that Krishna's relationship with the gopis is lusty, Kamarup, he uses the word only figuratively to aid our basic understanding. He is using that word figuratively, not literally. Because Prabhupada many times used to say that English is not the most perfect language to describe spiritual moods. In fact, the word ras also, the word mellow is a very close term which comes to rasa. There is no English word. for many of the Sanskrit words. So therefore, we use the word lust. But here lust is associated with what? Serial rapists, and murderers, that's what is lust. So it's not that. But in English, that word is used. So it is being used figuratively here. Now, it's a very nice way it is described here. Please hear carefully. But this should not be taken as a literal fact. This word lust should not be taken as a literal fact. It is simply a way of trying to understand the transcendental situation. Now, the punchline comes here. This is the main line around this point. Please hear very carefully. The gopis are consumed and obsessed. What are they? What is the word used? Consumed. The gopis are consumed. Consumed means, when you are consumed means what? You are not left with anything. You are consumed. Your whole faculties are consumed by something. The gopis are consumed and obsessed by a person, by a passion. The gopis are consumed and obsessed by a passion to satisfy Krishna. The force or the power of this obsession, the force of which is beyond our ability to comprehend. That force, that passion, apne daire se bahar hai. It is beyond our ability to comprehend. By comparing it to mundane lust, the single most consuming and overwhelming urge in our experience. In our experience, that is the most. That is why somebody was told 2 days back that all these movies, any movie you should take, what is the common thing? There is a man and there is a girl. Man and woman is there. Koi bhi movie lo. There is no movie outside of that. There is a man and woman, except Tom and Jerry probably. Or the Dora. Unless all those things, any movie you take, ultimately there is a man and a woman. And everything is going on around that. So Prabhupada says the whole world is revolving around Pumsa Striya Mithuni Bhava. Maithuni Bhava. This drives the whole world. Every activity is centered around this. Economic activity, any activity is centered around man and woman. Every industry is centered around man and woman. So by comparing it to mundane lust, which is the single most consuming and overwhelming urge in our experience, we may catch the slightest hint. We may catch the slightest hint of the intensity in the gopis' desire to serve Krishna. So an analogy is being given. It is being used figuratively, just to convey to us that as you guys, as Pururava's intensity towards Urvashi, which we can understand, in that sense, the intensity of the gopis towards Krishna. Does it make sense? Pururava, we have just, I'm using Pururava because we have just studied that pastime. So I understand what is the intensity. It has depressed many of us after reading that Pururava pastime. Right? Everyone knows the Pururava pastime? You want to hear? It's long, it will be long time. So we don't have time in the class. But I'll make it very short. 2 minutes, 3 minutes I'll say. Urvashi comes down to the material world because of a curse. Because of coming down to the material world, she gets an earthly mentality. She hears the pastimes of Pururava, who is coming in the dynasty of the Chandra Vamshas. Because Surya Vamsha was King Nimi.
Yeah.
So it comes in the Soma god. From the moon god in that dynasty comes Pururava. Okay. Now the 9th canto is transitioning from the Surya Vamshis to the Chandra Vamshis. So 9th canto earlier section is about who? Lord Ramachandra, who came in the Surya Vamshis. And now it's slowly transitioning to the Chandra Vamshis, so that in the 10th canto who can enter? Krishna. That is how the Bhagavad is moving. So therefore, this Pururava who comes in the Chandra Vamsha lineage, just hearing his descriptions of his beauty, valor, handsome, like that, Urvashi is attracted, right? But when Ururava sees Urvashi, his attraction to Urvashi is multiplied by, exponentially to the power of something, such that he says that when I see you, Urvashi, the hairs of my body stand on end. He said. Now this happens usually in Ashta Sattvika Bhava, for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when people see Krishna, then you're stunned and Ashta Sattvika Bhava comes. So, but when you see Urvashi, that happens to Pururava. So that is the intensity of the attraction. And then Urvashi, Pururava, Urvashi treats him so badly. But still Pururava is completely obsessed with her. She tells him that, I have this condition and that condition. She says that you have to take care of my pets also, then only I will marry you. Do lamb ko leke aati hai. Anyway, so lamb she brings, isko bhi leke aane ka. And then she puts a condition on him saying that, you should always come to me in front of me with clothes only. And then poor fellow is obeying everything, like that. And then some Gandharvas come and Indra gets a little bit, separation from Urvashi, udhar, upar. Kahan hai wo? So he calls for, leke aao usko fata. And then the Gandharvas are going down, and then Gandharvas ko pata hai, Urvashi aisa nahi aayegi, so lamb ko leke jate hain. They steal the lambs. And then Urvashi, the way she is cursing this Pururava, you coward, like that. Sometimes when you get yelled at like that, then you feel really bad. So she can't tolerate. Let me give a chance, I'll get the lambs back. Almost like that, she's cursing him. He runs out of whatever, and then he fights with the Gandharva, which is not easy. And then he brings both the lambs back, and then he realizes that he's not wearing any clothes. Because obviously bed se direct raat ko utke bhaga hai. So then Urvashi says, Tata, bye bye. Just imagine, after all this effort, Urvashi says, Abhi nahi, you have violated the second condition. So itna karne ke baad, then she leaves him, finally. But this fellow is not able to forget her. He runs here and there, and she finally tells him, itna bhav khati hai, ki after 1 year, she tells him, once a year you will meet me one day. And Pururava is saying, okay, no problem. Ek din to mila, 365 days mein uske saath. So much of obsession is there with Urvashi. And then he goes and performs a sacrifice in the forest eventually, when everything fails, and he puts wooden stakes, one Urvashi ke naam pe, one iske naam pe, one, and then he does Vedic mantras, Karma Kanda he chants, and then finally, he gets an imitation Urvashi, who looks almost like Urvashi, but fir bhi he is not satisfied. He says, no, original nahi hai. What is her name? Agni Sthali. He says, original version nahi hai, Urvashi ka. Humko only Urvashi or nothing else in my life. So such a single pointed obsession to Urvashi. And then finally what happens? He goes to Lord Krishna and meditates on the Supreme Personality of Godhead to attain Urvashi. And Urvashi takes it easy policy on her side. Correct? So that is what happens. Right? Urvashi is not at all bothered. But this fellow is obsessed. This fellow is completely obsessed. Now that obsession is an example of the perverted reflection of the obsession of the gopis to attain Krishna. So therefore, the word lust is used only figuratively in this pastime. So we must understand very carefully that Krishna's conjugal love affairs are impeccably transcendental. Impeccably transcendental. Externally they may resemble mundane lust, but internally they are motivated excessively by pure selfless prema. Okay? Now, what is the evidence? What is the evidence for the purity of spiritual lust? If spiritual lust is so pure, what is the evidence of that? So, as evidence of Gopi's transcendental purity, Srila Rupa Goswami cites the great devotee Uddhava in Brihad Bhagavatamrit. Everyone has heard of Brihad Bhagavatamrit? Anyone who doesn't know what is Brihad Bhagavatamrit? Everyone knows Brihad Bhagavatamrit. Okay. So Brihad Bhagavatamrit is the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. Just like Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of the Vedanta Sutra. So in Brihad Bhagavatamrit, there is a hierarchy of devotees which are given. Isse upar wo devotee, usse upar wo devotee, usse upar wo devotee. Aisa. Narad Muni is going in search of the devotee who is the most dearest to Lord Krishna. And who comes runners up in that list? Uddhava. So he is right on top there. He crossed even everyone. He crossed Shiva, he crossed Hanuman, right? He crossed the Pandavas also in his proximity to Krishna. So Uddhava is runners up, second silver medalist in that. So this Uddhava, Rupa Goswami cites this great devotee Uddhava. Although completely free from all attraction to mundane love affairs, so Uddhava is also completely to be in runners up in the list of Krishna's special devotees. How detached you have to be from material lust, right? So that Uddhava also glorifies the gopis' love for Krishna. That is one praman. Then Srila Prabhupada adds the example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the strictest sannyasi. Strictest sannyasi. In fact, even when who's the devotee who associated with the Bhattahari women? Kala Krishna Das. Correct? He associated with the Bhattahari woman. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I don't want to see his face. And he had to drown himself. Like that. So strict Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was. Na janam, na dhanam, na sundarim. Kavitam va jagadisha kamaye. Mama janmani janmaishare. Bhavatad bhakti. Na sundarim, which means no association with women. And that point is hammered. Association with women means poison. So that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the strictest sannyasi, also praises the gopis' love for Krishna. Then those Goswamis who are there, which Goswami is Pranati mantra? He says, Vipralamba rasambode padam bhujayate namo gaura kishoraya sakshat vairagya murteye Vipralamba rasambode padam bhujayate namo. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji was the strictest of the strictest of the strictest. Even slight sense of material desire. Some people used to come to him, Babaji Ashirwad. He said, get lost. He didn't want to please anyone. It didn't matter to him at all. Anyone comes with slight tinge of material attachment, he doesn't want to even talk to them. Such a strict Babaji he was. Not even sannyasi, Babaji. Even that Babaji meditated on Vipralamba Ras, the mood of love of gopis towards Krishna. So how can it be material lust? How can it be material lust? Right? So the conclusion is, if the gopis were affected by mundane sex desire, these two stalwart personalities would never have praised them. So the final conclusion of chapter 15. To further highlight the exalted purities of the gopis' love for Krishna, now hear this very carefully, there's a very important point. Srila Rupa Goswami mentions Kubja. Last time someone asked about Kubja. Kubja, whose attraction to Krishna was not as pure as the gopis. The selfish desire that slightly tinged her attraction excluded her from the category of Kamaru and relegated her to the lesser state of Kama Praya, almost lustful desire. Now what is the difference? From this, what is the difference then? Why is Kubja's bhakti not strictly coming under Ragatmika, Kamarupa Ragatmika, and coming under a lesser known Kama Praya?
That was not Anukulya because it was
No,
not.
it was not because of that. It was not because of that. Otherwise it will not even come under lesser known category of Ragatmika, Kamarupa.
Interesting to satisfy her senses.
Huh? Correct. Correct. Very good point. You have read very carefully. Thought about it. Okay. So, the three aspects are mentioned. Vrinda, what is your point?
There is a slight selfish.
Correct. So, there are three aspects which are given. This is not given in this book. I took some cross notes from somewhere else. Vrindavan, Gopi Bhav, Dwaraka Bhav of of the women, and Mathura Bhav. Vrindavan, Dwarka and Mathura. The Rati in Vrindavan is only to please Lord Krishna. Vrindavan mein, that mood is only to please Lord Krishna. Dwaraka, both Krishna and me. Mathura, she desired to enjoy. Kubja. This is what he said. She desired to enjoy Krishna. In her mind, she didn't have that thought coming up in her mind that Krishna should also enjoy it. It was, she got so attracted to him, which is very good, she wanted to enjoy it. That is why it doesn't come under pure Kamaru. In Kamaru, that aspect of Krishna's enjoyment is very important. But still, her attraction to Krishna was still qualified her for the lesser status of Kama Praya, which is called as a lesser status of Kamaru. Almost lusty desire. Almost lusty desire. Which means the transcendental lust means Krishna should also enjoy. Otherwise it's only called as almost lust. Right? So in a material sense, which is better, lust or almost lust? Almost lust is better than pure lust in material sense. But in spiritual sense, pure lust is higher than almost lust. Is it getting too much? So far, okay? I told you it's a heavy section. This one. Not a heavy, but we'll go through it. Because we are coming to the end of Nectar of Devotion. Almost. Yeah.
Difference between material sense and spiritual sense. What is it?
Difference between material senses and spiritual sense. This we discussed in Yukta Vairagya. There is nothing material if everything is utilized in the service of Krishna. And everything is material, even apparently if it looks like a spiritual object, if it is not used in the service of
The motivation determines what is the sense.
The motivation determines and the usage.
Motivation utility determines. So the sense itself is the same. Because how you use it determines what.
Correct. That is the second verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the second Chatushloki. The four more important verses in Srimad Bhagavatam. They are called as the Chatushloki of the Srimad Bhagavatam. You know, all of us must know the Chatushloki, four Chatushlokis. The second one out of that, I think I mentioned it in the class. This is canto number 1 point, not 1, it is 2.33, 31, 33, 231, 210, 33. If anyone has internet, just see. The second of the Chatushloki, which is verse 34, I believe, is Rite Ritam Yat Pratiyeta Na Pratiyeta Cha Atmani Tad Vidya Atmano Mayam Yatha Bhasho Yatha Tamaha. Which means that anything that is seen outside of Krishna is illusion. Otherwise there is no illusion actually. If everything is seen, anything material is that which is seen as not related to Krishna. Actually nothing is material because everything is Krishna. Everything is made of Brahman. And Brahman is Krishna's impersonal. So how can anything, and Brahman is spiritual, and if everything is Brahman, then how come something cannot be spiritual? Right? So material is only a word which has been given to define the consciousness of seeing something as unrelated to Krishna. Okay. Otherwise nothing is material.
So this makes it very clear to understand this section.
So that concludes chapter 15. So chapter 15 primarily defined what is Ragatmika Bhakti, and it classified Ragatmika Bhakti, it talked about what are the different ways on which we can remember the Lord. Then it classified what comes out of the ways of remembering the Lord, what comes under Ragatmika and what does not come under Ragatmika. Right? And then it dissected that there are at the outset there are two types of Ragatmika, Kama Roop and Sambandha Roop, and it discussed Kama Roop in little bit of detail, which is what we did now. That is chapter 15. Now we go to chapter 16, which will talk in little bit depth about Sambandha Roop, the second aspect of Ragatmika. Does it make sense? So now we are coming to that, Sambandha Roop. So chapter 16 is titled as Spontaneous Devotion Further Described. Now, chapters 1 to 14, again I am trying to get you all connected to the larger picture of Nectar of Devotion. Chapters 1 to 14 dealt with what? Vaidhi Sadhana. Chapter 15 is dealing with what? Chapter 16 is dealing with what? Okay, fine, all of you are correct in one sense. 1 to 14 talked about Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. 15 and 16 will talk about Ragatmika, but primarily Raganu in the context of defining Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. And it dissects Kama Roop and Sambandha Roop, 15 and 16. But chapters 1 to 16 still talk about what? Sadhana Bhakti. Correct, good. Sadhana Bhakti. Then chapter 17 and 18 will talk about Bhava Bhakti. And then final chapter will be Prema Bhakti. And that will complete our Bhakti Sastri Nectar of Devotion syllabus. Beyond that we will not discuss. Now itself, sir, if I discuss, then most of you will drop out of the course. First of all, I will myself drop out of it. Because I can't go beyond this. It is well beyond, at least my realization, to teach all these things. Okay. So, chapter 16, let us now, so bringing back the focus, now we are moving from 15 to 16. So, we are moving from Kama Roop to now Sambandha Roop. And we will also now start talking about Raganuga. So far we were talking Ragatmika, which is the goal. Now we will today in chapter 16, little bit talks about Sambandha Roop as a goal, but then it majorly talks about the process. अभी देखिए Raganuga Bhakti में करना क्या है? Many people will have question. ये सब सुना, अब मैं क्या करूँ? Obviously, that is the main thing. Correct? So that is what now we will see. So Prabhupada writes something interesting here. He says, the primary subject of chapters 15 and 16, however, is the practice of Raganuga sadhana, not the perfection of spontaneous devotion. So primary focus is what of chapters 15 and 16 is still sadhana bhakti. So it's not talking about the, yes, it has defined Ragatmika, so we understand what is the goal, but the primary focus is what? On the process. That is what we have to focus on right now. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami presents the subject of Ragatmika Bhakti only briefly. Itna briefly mein, thankfully he has presented briefly. Okay. In the stage of devotional service, please hear carefully, in the stage of devotional service, where regulative principles are followed, there is no necessity of discussing this law. Prabhupada is saying, in the stage of devotional service, where regulative principles are followed, no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling, in the stage of devotional service where regulative principles are followed, there is no necessity to discussing this love, for it must develop of itself. ये खुद बर खुद होना चाहिए. It must develop of itself at a more advanced stage. It must develop of itself. It cannot be imposed. From tomorrow, I will become like Madhu Mangal. Chalo, that BT Dandu, what is that? Madhu Mangal place? Gilli Danda.
Gilli Danda.
Oh, like, let's start thinking like we are Madhu Mangal and play with Krishna. No, It cannot be imposed. Sakyaras cannot be imposed. Or we cannot go and put our shoulder on, hand on Radha Vallabha and I don't say Sakyaras ho gaya. Trying to practice Raganuga. It will not work like that. So that's very important. It's very important. We'll come to it. Why Prabhupada is saying it may sound ridiculous, but there are people who do it actually. Yeah, there are people who do it. In the stage of devotional service where regulative principles are followed, there is no necessity of discussing this now, for it must develop of itself at a more advanced stage. And I know why you are laughing. It must develop of itself. So we cannot, because we have seen some instances recently. Some imitation that was going on. Okay. So, Raganuga Bhakti. So, let's start Raganuga Bhakti now. It's a good time. All of you are very fresh out of Raganuga Bhakti. It's only 8:54. We have 20 minutes to go. So, I'm sure all of you are very eagerly looking forward to Raganuga Bhakti section. So, I will not disappoint you. Spontaneous devotional service or Raganuga Bhakti. There आराम से करेंगे. Tension. नींद आ रहा है. Spontaneous devotional service or Raganuga. This is the effect of Pongal, not of the subject matter. You have to control somewhere else. But I can tell you, thankfully, I am the speaker in this class. If I was sitting there, I would probably also yawn. Speaker cannot yawn. So, spontaneous devotional service, Raganuga Bhakti, is the practice of advanced devotees intended to cultivate the sentiments of a particular eternal devotee, Ragatmika Bhakti. I am sure many of you have lost me here. Yes. So I will repeat. One by one. Easy. One by one. What did I do just now? I defined Raganuga Bhakti. That's all I did. I didn't do. Dhanudhar Maharaj did. I just repeated whatever he has written here. Spontaneous devotional service. What is it? ये रागात्मिका भक्ति, ये रागानुगा भक्ति क्या है? ये रागानुगा भक्ति. ठीक है? Keep you all awake for some time. So Raganuga Bhakti is the practice of advanced devotees. So first thing is what? First definition is what? It is the practice of कोई भी नहीं कर सकता. Anybody can say अभी से Raganuga शुरू किया मैंने. No. It is the practice of advanced devotees. Now what is that advanced? We'll come to. How do I know, Prabhu, whether I am advanced or not? That's the second question. Okay. So it is a practice of advanced devotees. What is it intended at? It is intended to cultivate the sentiments of a particular eternal devotee. It is intended to cultivate the sentiments. So which means what? Raganuga sadhana is a cultivation. Cultivation of what? Cultivation of sentiments. Of who? Of a particular devotee. So this devotee is also there, that devotee is also there, that devotee is also there. So therefore, we have to understand very clearly, it is to cultivate the sentiments of a particular devotee. That could be anyone, but it has to be a particular devotee. Which means it's single pointed devotion. Vyavasaitmika buddhi. That is the height of single pointed devotion. That mera mood Rupa Goswami jaisa hi hona chahiye. He is the person I want to follow. Or my mood should be exactly how Narottam Das Thakur. He inspires me most. Or Gaur Kishore Das Babaji inspires me most. Or Srila Prabhupada inspires me most. Or Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So one devotee, one Vrindavan devotee, it has to be. Who we have to meditate on. So it is intended to cultivate the sentiments of a particular devotee. And that devotee has to be a Ragatmika Bhakta. Can I say, with focus I will develop the mood of Narad Muni? Raganuga? No, because he is not Ragatmika. So that is why that section is very important to understand. So we should know who all are not there in that category. Right? So then we filter down, then come to the devotee, and then we go behind that devotee. And bus with full दिलो दिमाग के साथ, that person is छाया हुआ है on our consciousness. That devotee is fully in our consciousness, day in and day out. Because that is the devotee we want to emulate, follow. So it is the, once again, it is a practice of advanced devotees intended to cultivate the sentiments of a particular eternal devotee. That is very important. That devotee has to be a Prabhu, but all devotees are eternal. How will you answer that? We all are eternal. Never was a time when I was not there and he was not there. So what? So eternal devotee obviously means Nitya Siddha devotees. They are Nitya Siddha devotees who have never fallen down. Okay, somebody had a question?
So the mode of Srivas Pandit when he comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associate, is that different to, I don't know, I'm asking you, so how do we see that in this context? What is...
Narad Muni is not rejected. The mood in which that Bhaktiya word comes is rejected. Okay? Because same Narad Muni was allowed into the Rasalila pastimes as Narada Gopi when he went and took a dip in Kusum Sarovar in Vrindavan and emerged out as a Gopi. Correct? So he was given that Vardhan by who? Lord Shiva. Right? And Lord Shiva himself also was given that opportunity as Gopeshwar Mahadeva. Yeah. Right? So it is a mood, not the devotee.
Not the person, okay.
Have you completed the definition?
Yes. One more. No? No? The basic qualification now. What is the qualification? So we have defined what is Raganuga Bhakti. Everyone is clear? What is Raganuga Bhakti? Or Karna kya hai? What is the what is it? Which direction should we go in? So there has to be one devotee which we choose. Now, what is the qualification to practice? Because it was said that it has to be practiced by advanced devotee. So what is the qualification? So the basic qualification for Raganuga Bhakti is a natural, spontaneous desire. Natural, spontaneous desire, not artificial, spontaneous desire. Because artificially spontaneous is like that oxymoron. Oxymoron, it's called as, in figure of speech in English. They are both opposite. Artificial behavior or spontaneous behavior. No. Spontaneity will come only naturally. Spontaneity will not come artificially. Of course, it can come to very advanced pretenders. Okay. But this is a natural, spontaneous desire to serve Krishna in a specific relationship. The basic qualification, I am repeating, the basic qualification for Raganuga Bhakti is a natural, spontaneous desire to serve Krishna in a specific relationship. So the word serve is coming there. It's not that Raganuga Bhakti mein serve nahi hai. And again, all these points are going to be important. Because of this, there are a lot of people called as Sahajiyas in Vrindavan. Because this definition has not been clearly understood. It has been misinterpreted. So therefore, very carefully you have to understand. It's the natural, spontaneous desire to serve Krishna in a specific relationship. A desire that can be evoked. See the beauty now. This desire can be evoked. What do you mean by evoked? Why the word evoked has been used?
It's already there.
Because it is already there. It's already there. It's covered. It can be evoked by hearing about the eternal residents of Vrindavan. It can be evoked by what process? Hearing. So Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti may be what is important? Hearing. By hearing, we will evoke that. Evoke that desire by hearing about the eternal residents of Vrindavan. In this case, about all the eternal residents of Vrindavan? No.
One particular.
You have to choose one. Follow. Like an obsession, just follow that devotee, that devotee, that devotee. there is a gradual development of the ambition to become like a particular devotee. Very nice words. What is it? There is a gradual development, which means it will not happen in one day. It may not even happen in one lifetime. There is a gradual development of the ambition. What is developing here? The ambition. First there has to be ambition. Then only somebody will study. Many times we tell our children to study. Hey, sit, like that. Why the children don't study? We are not creating an ambition in their heart. We are simply does it happen like that or what? Will anyone study? Did we study like that? Obviously not. But we still expect our children to study like that. Correct? So here, but I am not talking about that right now. Okay. There is a gradual development of the ambition. So there has to be inspiration from within. But what will create that? Shravanadi, Chitta Shuddha Karilodaya. It has to be through the ears. Keep on hearing. So the gradual development of the ambition to become like a particular devotee. And this activity of developing that ambition is called as Raganuga Sadhana. This activity of developing that ambition, that is itself Raganuga Sadhana. Spontaneously hearing about one devotee again and again and again and again. Nobody needs to tell you. Boss, आज सनातन गोस्वामी का लेक्चर सुनने का SMS भेजता हूँ. Lotus Notes में I will do activities में. Which means it is not coming spontaneously. Spontaneously it will come when you have not realized when the mind has gone to Sanatana Goswami. That is called as spontaneously, not some to-do list or reminders. Okay. So there are a few interesting verses. We have 9 more minutes. We'll continue in the next class, but we'll just go through some of them quickly. So one verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita has been elaborated in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The English translation of that verse is as follows. When an advanced, realized devotee, all of us will repeat. When an advanced, realized devotee. So who is hearing? When an advanced, realized devotee hears about the affairs, hears about the affairs of the devotees of Vrindavan. Don't just say it, think about it also. What you are saying, okay? When an advanced realized devotee hears about the affairs of the devotees of Vrindavan, enough of saying together. Okay. On the mellows, what are we hearing on? On the mellows of Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya and Madhurya. When we keep hearing about this, he becomes inclined in that particular way. So if he keeps hearing about Vatsalya, the devotee becomes inclined in that way. Okay? And his intelligence becomes attracted. Intelligence becomes attracted. Not only purified, intelligence becomes attracted. Indeed, he begins to covet. He begins to covet that particular type of devotion. He begins to covet that particular type of devotion. When such covetousness is awakened, covetousness means what? A greed, kind of a greed. To covet has got an angle of greed. It's got a pehlu of greed. To covet is different. To just want something, to want to covet something means what? There has to be a little bit more than just ordinary. Like that. I like Puri Bhaji. Like that. To covet something. When such covetousness is awakened, one's intelligence no longer depends on the instruction of Shastra or revealed scripture or logic or arguments. When such covetousness comes, मतलब भूत चढ़ा हुआ है इसको, भूत नहीं मतलब प्रेम, कृष्ण प्रेम almost like that. He is obsessed. The devotional service of a Raganuga devotee is guided only by his own intense craving. Again, the word intense craving is used. There are various metaphors of kavat which is coming here. So the devotional service of a Raganuga devotee is guided only by the intense craving to attain the service of a particular resident of Vrindavan and not by scriptural injunctions. The scriptural injunction kuch nahi hai. Srila Prabhupada describes these Raganuga devotees, they do not follow the regulative principles of devotional service. They do not follow the principles of devotional service very strictly. Immediately I know what mind will tell. Thoda bahut time pass bhi hota hoga na. No, it's not like that. Okay? But by spontaneous nature, they become attracted to some of the eternal devotees such as Nanda or Yashoda, and they try to follow in their footsteps spontaneously. That's all it means. It's just that word spontaneous is being hammered, drilled into our head. Not driven by fear, not because मैंने अग्नि के सामने I have taken first initiation, not because I have to go, अभी ब्राह्मण दीक्षा हो गया है, अभी करना पड़ेगा. No, nothing of that sort. One point must be repeatedly stressed. Okay? That a Raganuga devotee is above the regulative principles. Who is above the regulative principles, it means that they are not dependent on the scriptural injunction for their inspiration to serve and surrender. That inspiration to serve and surrender doesn't come from scriptural injunctions. Their aspiration comes from their own spontaneous affection. This does not mean that a Raganuga Bhakta does not follow the regulative principles. Okay? Where is it said here? We just said here, no? They do not follow the regulative principles, but here it's clarified. This does not mean that a Raganuga Bhakta does not follow the regulative principles. It means that their motivation is love or rag, not obligation or vidhi. Their motivation is to serve the Lord is love. It doesn't come out of any obligation or vidhi. Okay. You have 4 more minutes. Our spontaneous desire is to go home now. कृष्णा बहुत हो गया, थोड़ा ज़्यादा हो गया, एक दिन में इतना नहीं दे सकता. Anyway, that is why we are called as conditioned souls, driven by sleep, boredom, right, including me also. Anyway, so I'll. Prabhupada ki jai.